September 14th, 1943. Côte de Beaune, Burgundy, France. The Messerschmitt's engine screams overhead, trailing black smoke across the morning sky. Pierre Laroche stands motionless in his vineyard, hands still gripping pruning shears, watching the crippled fighter spiral eastward toward the forest beyond his property. The aircraft is losing altitude rapidly, approximately 300 meters above the treetops, dropping fast. Pierre counts seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. The impact comes at 7 seconds. Not an explosion, just the terrible sound of metal tearing through oak trees somewhere in the woods that separate his vineyard from the neighboring estate. Pierre is 51 years old. He has made wine in these hills for 32 years. He knows the sound of German staff cars on the road below his cellar. He knows the schedule of SS patrols that sweep through the region every 3 days searching for resistance fighters and downed Allied airmen. He knows that approximately 12 minutes from now, German soldiers will be swarming through those woods, and if they find the pilot before Pierre does, that man will spend the rest of the war in a prison camp or face execution as a terror bomber. The wind shifts. Pierre can smell smoke now, aviation fuel burning. Not a large fire, which means the pilot might have survived. Pierre sets down his shears and walks quickly toward his stone farmhouse. His wife Marie stands in the doorway, face pale. "You're going to look. It's not a question. Someone has to. The Germans will come. Then I need to move quickly." Pierre takes nothing except a canteen of water and a heavy wool blanket. He crosses his vineyard, moving parallel to the road, staying below the ridgeline where he can't be seen from the village. The woods are 200 meters from his property line. He enters the trees at a point where a deer trail cuts through the undergrowth. The smell of smoke grows stronger. He finds the Messerschmitt 400 meters into the forest. The aircraft has carved a path through the trees, shearing off branches, plowing through saplings before coming to rest in a small clearing. The tail section is crumpled. The canopy is shattered. The right wing is gone completely, torn off in the initial impact. Fuel leaks from ruptured tanks, pooling in the moss. The pilot sits 20 meters from the wreckage, propped against a tree trunk. He's removed his helmet and oxygen mask. Blood runs from a gash above his left eye. His right arm hangs at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. He can't be more than 24 years old. He's trying to work his service pistol out of its holster with his left hand, but his fingers won't cooperate. Pierre approaches slowly, hands visible. "English? American?" The pilot looks up, eyes unfocused. "American, 8th Air Force. Lieutenant. He trails off, confused. "You're injured. Concussion, probably. Can you walk?" "Don't know. Everything's spinning." Pierre hears engines on the road, distant but approaching fast. German trucks, at least 2 of them, maybe 3. He has perhaps 5 minutes before soldiers reach the crash site. "We need to move now. Can you stand?" He helps the pilot to his feet. The young man staggers, nearly falls. His right arm is definitely broken, possibly his collarbone as well. Walking will be difficult. Running impossible. Pierre does quick calculations. The nearest safe house is 8 kilometers away in Pommard. The pilot can't possibly walk that far. The forest offers temporary concealment, but the Germans will search it systematically with dogs. They'll find tracks, blood trail, the pilot's parachute harness discarded near the wreckage. "My name is Pierre. I make wine. My cellar is close, 600 meters through these woods. Can you make that distance?" The pilot nods, though his expression suggests he's not certain. They begin moving west, Pierre supporting most of the young man's weight. Progress is agonizingly slow. Behind them, Pierre hears vehicles stopping on the road, doors slamming, voices shouting in German, orders being given, search parties forming. They reach the vineyard's edge in 8 minutes. Pierre can see his farmhouse below, the stone wine cellar built into the hillside behind it. The cellar is 300 years old, thick walls, multiple chambers, a perfect hiding place except for one problem: the SS search wine cellars. They search thoroughly. They've been hunting resistance networks in Burgundy for 18 months. They know wine cellars are used for smuggling, for hiding contraband, for concealing fugitives. Pierre needs more than a hiding place. He needs misdirection. They reach the cellar entrance. Pierre pulls open the heavy wooden door and helps the pilot down steep stone steps into darkness. Cool air rises from below, carrying the complex aroma of aging wine. Oak, earth, fermentation, time compressed into scent. The cellar extends 30 meters into the hillside. Barrel racks line both walls. 600 barrels of wine in various stages of aging. The pilot leans against the wall, breathing hard. They'll search here. Yes, Pierre says. They will. Then we need a better plan. We have one. You're going to disappear into the wine. The barrel chambers of Pierre Laroche's cellar represent 3 centuries of Burgundian winemaking tradition. The oldest section dates to 1648, carved directly from limestone bedrock during the reign of Louis XIV. Successive generations added chambers, expanded capacity, deepened tunnels. By 1943, the cellar holds 623 oak barrels, arranged in precise rows, according to vintage, vineyard, and aging schedule. Each barrel is a masterwork of cooperage. French oak from forests near Nevers or Allier, air-dried for 3 years. Hand-shaped using techniques unchanged since medieval times. Standard Burgundy barrel size, 228 liters. Weight when full, approximately 300 kilograms. The barrels rest on wooden cradles called chantiers that keep them stable and allow for rotation during aging. Pierre knows every barrel in this cellar. He knows which wines are ready for bottling, which need another year, which have developed faults and will become vinegar. He knows the complex microbiology of wine aging, how oxygen slowly permeates through oak staves, how yeasts and bacteria transform harsh young wine into something remarkable over months and years. Most importantly for what he's planning, Pierre knows that wine barrels are never perfectly sealed. They leak. Slowly, continuously, a phenomenon winemakers call the angel's share, 2% of volume lost per year through evaporation and seepage. This natural leakage creates a critical detail. Barrels must be topped up regularly, refilled to prevent excessive oxygen contact that would spoil the wine. Pierre tops up his barrels every 3 weeks, adding wine from reserve casks to maintain proper fill levels. This routine maintenance is so fundamental to winemaking that nobody questions it. German soldiers who've searched this cellar 6 times in the past year don't notice the partially filled reserve casks. Don't question why some barrels sit on workbenches awaiting attention. Don't understand the difference between a barrel in storage and a barrel being actively worked. Pierre is going to exploit this invisibility. Listen carefully, he tells the pilot, whose name he's learned is Lieutenant James Mackenzie from Cincinnati, Ohio, bombardier on a B-17 that took heavy flak over Mannheim. Mackenzie bailed out over France when the aircraft became uncontrollable. He has no idea what happened to the rest of his crew. The SS will search this cellar within the hour. They'll look behind barrels, inside empty casks, in every corner. They'll bring dogs trained to detect human scent. We cannot simply hide you in a corner. Mackenzie's concussion has improved slightly. His eyes focus better now, though pain creases his face whenever he moves his broken arm. So what's your plan? Pour wine on me and hope they don't notice an extra barrel? Close, Pierre says, but more precise. He leads Mackenzie deeper into the cellar, past rows of aging barrels into a work chamber where equipment is stored. Wooden pallets, hand tools, a small forge for repairing iron barrel hoops, and critically, 4 empty barrels in various states of maintenance. These barrels are between vintages, cleaned and dried, awaiting reuse. Each stands approximately 90 centimeters tall, 60 centimeters in diameter at the widest point, just large enough for a man to fit inside if he curls into a fetal position. You're joking, Mackenzie says flatly. You'll suffocate me. No, the staves are not perfectly sealed. Air passes through. Not much, but enough. You'll be able to breathe. For how long? As long as necessary. Hours if required. Mackenzie stares at the barrel. And when the Germans search, they'll just ignore a barrel with a person inside? They'll ignore a barrel that's part of the normal cellar operations. I'm going to make you invisible by making you obvious. Pierre's plan depends on understanding how people search. Specifically, how German soldiers trained to find hidden fugitives approach a space like a wine cellar. They look for anomalies, things out of place, disturbances in normal patterns, a loose stone that might conceal a hiding space, barrels arranged differently than expected, fresh dirt suggesting recent digging. They're hunting for deviations from what a normal working cellar should look like. Pierre's strategy is to make Mackenzie part of the normal pattern. The Germans have searched this cellar 6 times. Each time, they've seen barrels on workbenches, empty casks awaiting cleaning, equipment scattered around the work area. It's expected. It's what a functioning winery looks like. The Germans don't examine empty barrels closely because empty barrels are normal maintenance items, not hiding places. But Pierre needs to add one more layer of misdirection. The barrel containing Mackenzie can't just be empty and sitting in the work area. It needs to be integrated into an active task, something so mundane that soldiers won't give it a second glance. He's going to stage a barrel repair operation. Here's what happens, Pierre explains quickly, aware that German search parties are probably entering the forest now, following the crash trail. You get inside this barrel. I seal the top with a temporary head, a wooden lid that fits snugly but isn't permanently attached. I then place this barrel on the workbench alongside 3 other barrels I'm supposedly repairing. I scatter tools around, make it look like I was interrupted during maintenance. When Germans search, they see a winemaker's work in progress, not a hiding place. What if they open the barrel? They won't. The barrel will have repair markings on it. Notes about work needed. I'll have tools positioned as if I was testing the staves for tightness. Soldiers don't understand cooperage. They'll see a maintenance task in progress and move on. You're betting my life on soldiers being lazy? I'm betting your life on soldiers being human. They're searching hundreds of properties. They get tired. They take shortcuts. They see what they expect to see. If we show them a normal cellar with normal work happening, they'll search the obvious hiding places and leave. Mackenzie touches the barrel, running his hand along the smooth oak staves. How do I breathe in there? Shallow breaths through your nose. The gaps between staves allow air circulation. It won't be comfortable, but you'll survive. The greater danger is panic. You must remain absolutely still and silent no matter what you hear outside. Can you do that? The young pilot looks at Pierre for a long moment. He's calculating odds, weighing options. Finally, he nods. I can do that. Then we begin. Pierre Laroche was born April 6, 1892, in the village of Beaune, heart of Burgundy wine country. His family has made wine on these hillsides for 9 generations, surviving wars, revolutions, phylloxera epidemics, economic collapses. Pierre's grandfather made wine during the Franco-Prussian War when German troops occupied Burgundy the first time. His father made wine through World War I, somehow keeping the vineyard functioning despite 3 years of grape rot and labor shortages. Pierre inherited the estate in 1921, 28 hectares of Pinot Noir on limestone slopes. Perfect terroir for red Burgundy. He studied winemaking at the university in Dijon, learned the science behind the art, returned home determined to make wines worthy of the family legacy. Through the 1920s and 30s, his wines earned recognition. Burgundy merchants in Beaune paid premium prices for his barrels. Restaurants in Paris listed his vintages. When Germany invaded France in 1940, Pierre was 48 years old. too old for military service. He watched the French army collapse in 6 weeks, watched German columns roll through Burgundy, watched the occupation begin. The Germans were efficient occupiers. They requisitioned wine for officers' messes. They imposed production quotas. They threatened saboteurs with execution. But they needed French winemakers to keep working because Wehrmacht officers liked drinking fine wine. Pierre kept making wine. He had no choice. The alternative was confiscation of his property and deportation for economic sabotage. But compliance didn't mean loyalty. Pierre quietly joined a resistance network in 1941. Nothing dramatic. He provided food to families whose men had been taken for forced labor. He hid documents for resistance couriers passing through Burgundy. He allowed his barn to be used for clandestine meetings. Small acts, carefully managed, nothing that would draw SS attention. He never expected to hide downed airmen. That level of resistance work meant death if caught. The Germans treated helping Allied aircrew as espionage, punishable by execution not just of the helper but often their entire family. Pierre has a wife, 2 married daughters living in Lyon, grandchildren. The risk is catastrophic. But Lieutenant James Mackenzie crashed 400 meters from Pierre's vineyard, and Pierre cannot ignore that. So now he's committed. Now he's moving an injured American pilot into his wine cellar, preparing to hide him in a barrel, betting everything that German soldiers will see exactly what Pierre wants them to see, and nothing more. Mackenzie climbs into the barrel with difficulty. His broken arm makes movement agonizing. Pierre helps him curl into position, knees drawn up, head tucked down, body compressed into the smallest possible configuration. It's cramped, uncomfortable, borderline unbearable. Mackenzie's breathing comes faster. "Calm," Pierre says quietly. "Focus on breathing slowly. You're safe. This is insane." "Yes, but it will work." Pierre positions the temporary barrel head, a circular wooden lid that fits snugly into the barrel's opening. He doesn't seal it permanently, just sets it in place so it looks like a barrel awaiting final assembly. He steps back and examines his work. From the outside, it looks like an empty barrel in mid-repair, indistinguishable from the 3 other barrels on the workbench. Now for the theater. Pierre arranges tools around the barrels. A curved adze for shaping staves, a hammer for driving hoops, a small plane for smoothing edges. He positions these tools as if he'd been working and was interrupted. He scatters wood shavings on the bench. He places a notation board nearby with cryptic cooperage notes about tannin levels and toast specifications, technical jargon that means nothing to non-winemakers. The scene looks exactly like what it is: a winemaker maintaining his equipment. The barrel containing Mackenzie is invisible because it's obvious. It's part of the expected environment. Pierre has created a hiding place in plain sight. He checks his watch. 23 minutes since the plane crashed. German soldiers are definitely in the forest now, following the crash trail. They'll reach the vineyard soon. Pierre climbs the cellar stairs and emerges into sunlight. Marie stands in the farmhouse doorway, watching the tree line. "They're coming," she says. "I can see them on the ridge." "How many?" 8, maybe 10. SS, not Wehrmacht. That's bad. Wehrmacht soldiers are conscripts, often tired, going through the motions. SS troops are ideological, thorough, dangerous. They'll search properly. "What do I tell them?" Marie asks. "The truth. You heard an aircraft crash. You saw me go investigate. I returned and told you it was a German plane. Pilot dead. You know nothing else. And the American? There is no American. There is only a winemaker repairing barrels in his cellar." Pierre walks down to his vineyard and resumes pruning as if nothing unusual has happened. He works steadily, methodically, trimming excess shoots from grapevines. The work is calming. His hands know these movements from decades of repetition. He doesn't look toward the forest, doesn't show any interest in the soldiers approaching. They arrive at precisely 9:32. 10 SS troops, led by an Obersturmführer, first lieutenant, young, maybe 30 years old, wearing an immaculate uniform despite the forest search. The officer approaches while his men spread out to search the property. "You are the owner." The officer's French is accented but competent. "Pierre Laroche. I make wine here." "You heard the aircraft crash?" "Yes, perhaps half an hour ago. I saw it come down in the forest." "You investigated?" "Briefly. I thought the pilot might need help. But the plane was destroyed. I saw no survivors." "It was a German aircraft, a Messerschmitt." "I know nothing about aircraft. I saw wreckage and smoke. I returned to my work." The officer studies Pierre with pale blue eyes. He's trying to determine if this aging winemaker is lying, if he's hiding something. Pierre meets his gaze calmly. He has nothing to hide except everything. "We will search your property," the officer says. "It's not a request." "Of course. My cellar is open." The officer barks orders. Soldiers move through the farmhouse, the barn, the outbuildings. They're professional, systematic. They check obvious hiding places, attics, root cellars, haylofts. They find nothing because there's nothing to find. Everything incriminating is hidden in plain sight in the wine cellar. The officer and 4 soldiers descend into the cellar. Pierre follows, playing the role of cooperative citizen. The cellar's cool darkness envelops them. Flashlight beams cut through the gloom, illuminating rows of barrels. "What is stored here?" the officer asks. "Wine. 600 barrels. Vintages from 1939 to 1942. Only wine. Only wine. This is what I do." The soldiers begin searching. They walk between barrel rows, checking behind them, looking for hidden spaces. They examine the walls for concealed doors or passages. One soldier taps stones, listening for hollow sounds. Another probes the dirt floor with a bayonet, searching for buried containers. They're thorough, but they don't understand wine cellars. They don't notice that some barrels sit lower on their cradles, indicating fuller contents. They don't observe the subtle differences between barrels in active aging versus storage. They see 600 identical oak casks, and their eyes glaze over. The officer reaches the work chamber. He examines the barrels on the bench, the scattered tools, the notation board. Pierre's heart pounds, but his expression remains neutral. The officer picks up the adze, weighs it in his hand, sets it down. "You are working on these?" He gestures at the barrels. "Routine maintenance. Barrels must be checked for leaks, staves tightened, hoops adjusted. Otherwise wine spoils." "These are empty?" "Yes, between vintages. I clean them, inspect them, prepare them for the next harvest." The officer raps his knuckles against the barrel containing Mackenzie. The sound is hollow, exactly like an empty barrel should sound. Inside, Mackenzie remains absolutely motionless, breathing in shallow sips through gaps in the staves. The officer moves on. He examines the other 3 barrels, gives them the same perfunctory inspection. He's already losing interest. This is a wine cellar. It looks exactly like a wine cellar should look. No hidden passages, no weapons caches, no obvious places to hide a fugitive. "Have you seen any strangers in this area?" the officer asks. "No, I see very few people. I work alone in my vineyard. If you see anyone suspicious, you will report immediately to the commandator in Beaune." Of course, the search continues another 20 minutes. Soldiers check every corner, move barrels to look behind them, climb into the deepest chambers. They find nothing. Finally, the officer orders his men to withdraw. They climb the stone stairs and emerge into sunlight. Pierre follows, maintaining his role of cooperative but unimportant winemaker. The officer pauses at the cellar entrance. "The pilot of that Messerschmitt may have survived. If he comes here seeking help, you will notify us immediately. Assisting enemy personnel is punishable by death. I understand. For your sake, I hope you do." The SS troops depart. Pierre watches them disappear down the road toward Beaune. He waits 10 minutes, then 20. No vehicles return. No soldiers reappear. He descends into the cellar and walks quickly to the work chamber. "Lieutenant," he says quietly, "they're gone. They're gone." He lifts the barrel head. Mackenzie uncurls slowly, gasping. His face is pale, slick with sweat. "I heard everything. Heard that German officer tapping on the barrel. Thought I was dead. But you're not. You did well." No sound, no movement. Mackenzie climbs out with Pierre's help. His legs barely support him. The adrenaline crash combines with his injuries. He looks like he might collapse. "Can you walk?" "Don't know. Everything hurts. You need medical attention. The broken arm needs setting. That head wound needs cleaning. But I cannot bring a doctor here. Too dangerous. So what now?" "Now we keep you alive until I can arrange transport to a safe house. That will take time. Days, maybe a week. You'll have to stay hidden." Mackenzie looks around the cellar. "In the barrel? When necessary. But that's not sustainable. I have a better solution." Pierre leads him deeper into the cellar, into chambers that the German soldiers searched but didn't understand. The oldest section from 1648 contains tunnels that extend beyond the current property boundaries. Medieval builders dug these passages for multiple reasons: temperature control, drainage, possibly smuggling during various historical conflicts. The tunnels were partially collapsed and sealed decades ago, considered too dangerous for regular use. Pierre has quietly excavated one tunnel over the past 2 years. Not for resistance work initially, just curiosity about his property's history. But the excavation created a hidden space, approximately 3 meters long, 1 meter wide, accessible through a gap behind a massive barrel rack that looks immovably fixed but actually swings aside if you know the correct angle. "No one knows about this except me," Pierre says. "Not even Marie. I'll bring you food, water, medical supplies. You'll stay here until I can contact the resistance network." "How long?" "As long as it takes." Mackenzie stares into the dark tunnel. It's crude, uncomfortable, isolated, but it's alive. "Okay, I'll manage." "You're a brave man, Lieutenant. I'm a terrified man who doesn't want to spend the war in a German prison camp." That's a good motivation. Pierre helps Mackenzie into the tunnel space. He provides blankets, water, some bread and cheese. "Rest now. I'll return after dark with proper supplies. Don't make any noise." The cellar has excellent acoustics. Sound carries. He repositions the barrel rack, concealing the tunnel entrance. From the outside, nothing looks disturbed. The cellar appears exactly as it did before. Pierre climbs the stairs and emerges into afternoon light. Marie waits in the farmhouse kitchen. "Is he safe?" she asks. "For now. This is dangerous, Pierre. If they catch us." "I know. Our daughters. The grandchildren. I know." He takes her hands. "But what choice do we have? That boy is someone's son. Would you want him abandoned if he were ours?" Marie closes her eyes. She's terrified, but she's also a woman who's lived through 2 German occupations. She understands that compliance has limits. "What do you need me to do?" End quote. "Act normally. Keep the house as you always do. If soldiers return, you know nothing about anything except wine. I've never been good at lying. You won't have to lie. You genuinely don't know where he's hidden. I haven't told you. What you don't know, you can't reveal under interrogation." She nods slowly. The logic is brutal but sound. Resistance networks operate on need-to-know principles for exactly this reason. Pierre has protected Marie by keeping her ignorant of details. Over the following days, Pierre settles into a dangerous routine. He works his vineyard normally, maintaining the facade of a simple winemaker focused only on his grapes and barrels. He accepts a visit from German agricultural officials inspecting wine production quotas. He delivers several barrels to a Wehrmacht supply depot in Beaune, his face neutral as soldiers tap the casks and approve his contribution to the occupation. Each night after dark, Pierre descends into his cellar and brings Mackenzie food, water, medical supplies procured carefully from a sympathetic pharmacist in town. He cleans and bandages the head wound. He fashions a crude splint for the broken arm using barrel staves and cloth strips. He cannot set the bone properly, that requires a doctor, but he can immobilize it enough to prevent further damage. Mackenzie endures. The tunnel space is cold, damp, uncomfortable beyond description. He has no light except when Pierre visits with a candle. He has nothing to do except think about his crew, wonder who survived the bomber crash, replay the terror of bailing out over enemy territory. But he's alive. That matters. Pierre contacts the resistance network on the third day. He uses a courier system involving wine deliveries. A specific barrel delivered to a specific merchant in Beaune with notation marks indicating urgent communication needed. The merchant passes word to network handlers. Within 2 days, response comes back. The network will arrange extraction, but it will take time. Allied airmen are being moved through an underground railroad of safe houses toward the Swiss border or Spain. Current routes are compromised. New connections must be established. Estimated wait time, 3 to 4 weeks. Pierre conveys this to Mackenzie. The young pilot takes the news with resignation. 4 weeks in a tunnel. That's going to be rough. Better than 4 years in Stalag Luft. True. At least your food is better than prison camp rations. They develop a routine. Pierre visits nightly around 9 o'clock when darkness provides cover. He brings food, water, news from the outside world gathered from BBC broadcasts that Pierre listens to secretly on a hidden radio. The news in September 1943 is mixed. Italy has surrendered, but German forces occupy the country. Soviet armies are pushing west, but slowly, at terrible cost. Allied bombing campaigns are devastating German cities, but also killing Allied air crews at catastrophic rates. Your bomber, Pierre asks one night. What happened to the rest of your crew? We took flak over the target, lost 2 engines, started losing altitude. Pilot gave the bailout order somewhere over France. I jumped, saw maybe 3 other chutes. Don't know if they made it down safely. Mackenzie's voice carries weight of survivor's guilt. I was the bombardier. I was supposed to make sure the mission succeeded. Instead, we got shot to pieces and scattered across occupied France. You're alive. That's not failure. Doesn't feel like success. Pierre understands. He spent 3 years watching his country occupied, his wine requisitioned, his neighbors arrested for resistance activities. Collaboration feels like betrayal even when it's survival. War makes everyone complicit. We do what we must to see tomorrow. Sometimes that's all the victory we get. On day 9, crisis arrives. German soldiers return to search the property again. Pierre is working in the vineyard when vehicles appear. Same SS unit, same officer. This time they bring dogs. The officer approaches without pleasantries. We have information that an American airman was seen in this region. We are conducting follow-up searches. Pierre's stomach drops, but his face remains calm. I have seen no Americans. Your cellar will be searched again, with dogs trained to detect human scent. Of course, Pierre leads them to the cellar entrance. His mind races. Mackenzie is hidden in the sealed tunnel, but dogs might detect his scent near the entrance. The barrel rack conceals the tunnel, but dogs might alert on it. Everything depends on how thoroughly the soldiers search and how well the concealment holds. The dogs descend into the cellar, handlers controlling them with short leashes. The animals move between barrel rows, sniffing, searching for human scent. They pause occasionally, alert on areas, but find nothing significant. Too many human scents in the cellar. Pierre works here daily. The odor of wine, oak, earth, overwhelms the dog's ability to isolate a specific individual. They reach the work chamber. Pierre's heart hammers. The dogs sniff around the barrels where Mackenzie hid during the first search. They move to the barrel rack, concealing the tunnel entrance. One dog pauses, sniffs intently at the base of the rack. The handler watches, waiting for a definitive alert. Pierre forces himself to breathe normally. He cannot show fear, cannot give any indication that something is hidden behind that rack. The dog moves on. It's detected something, residual scent perhaps, but not strong enough to warrant full alert. The handler leads it deeper into the cellar chambers. The search continues 40 minutes. The soldiers and dogs examine every section. They find nothing. Eventually, the officer orders withdrawal. He's frustrated, suspicious, but lacking evidence. "If we discover you are hiding anyone," the officer says coldly, "you and your wife will be executed." "I understand. I am hiding no one." The soldiers depart. Pierre waits until they're gone, then waits another hour to ensure they don't return. Finally, he descends to the tunnel and whispers through the gap, "They brought dogs, but you're safe." The concealment held. Mackenzie's voice comes back shaky. "I heard them. Heard the dogs right outside. Thought it was over, but it wasn't. You're still alive." We continue. Days become weeks. Pierre maintains his routine. He harvests grapes as September turns to October. He works the crush, fermenting new wine in large vats, while Mackenzie hides meters away in his tunnel. The cellar fills with the sharp smell of active fermentation, carbon dioxide bubbling through juice, yeast transforming sugar to alcohol. The process is ancient, mysterious, miraculous, life creating itself through transformation. Pierre reflects on parallels. Wine grapes, crushed and broken, transformed through chemistry and time into something valuable. Mackenzie, broken by war, hiding in darkness, waiting for transformation into freedom. The harvest continues around them, while underneath, in stone tunnels, survival happens one day at a time. On October 7th, 23 days after Mackenzie crashed, contact finally comes. The resistance network has arranged extraction. Mackenzie will be moved to a safe house near Dijon, then eventually to a border crossing into Switzerland. Timeline is set. Departure in 2 days. Pierre conveys the news. Mackenzie receives it with exhausted relief. 23 days in a hole. I wasn't sure I'd make it. But you did. 2 more days, then you're gone. I'll never forget this. What you did, what you risked. Pierre shrugs. I make wine. I hide people in barrels. These are the skills war demands. On October 9th, an hour after midnight, a truck arrives. 2 resistance fighters, quiet men who speak little, collect Mackenzie. They provide civilian clothes, forged papers, instructions for the journey ahead. Mackenzie shakes Pierre's hand. "Thank you for my life. Survive the war, Lieutenant. Go home. That's thanks enough." The truck disappears into darkness. Pierre returns to his cellar, to his barrels, to wine aging slowly in the cool earth. He erases traces of Mackenzie's presence, reseals the tunnel, returns the cellar to its normal configuration. By dawn, no evidence remains that an American pilot was ever here. Life continues. Pierre makes wine through autumn, barrels aging quietly as war rages across Europe. He will hide 2 more Allied airmen before the liberation, both using the same barrel concealment technique. Both survive. The SS never discovers his methods. The wine continues aging, transforming, becoming something remarkable through time and chemistry. When Allied forces finally liberate Burgundy in September 1944, Pierre is still making wine, still hiding people when needed, still surviving through knowledge and careful deception. His 1943 vintage, made while Mackenzie hid beneath the cellar, will be considered one of the finest of the war years. Complex, layered, carrying subtle notes that experts struggle to describe. Pierre knows the secret. That vintage was made with fear and hope fermented together, with life preserved in darkness while grapes transformed in light. Lieutenant James Mackenzie returns to Ohio after the war. He writes Pierre a letter in 1946, thanking him again, describing his life rebuilt, marriage, children, normalcy recovered. Pierre keeps the letter in his cellar office. filed between cooper's bills and harvest notes. Just another piece of paper in a winemaker's records. Just another life saved by understanding that sometimes survival means hiding in plain sight, becoming part of the expected pattern, trusting that soldiers searching for anomalies will miss what's perfectly, obviously concealed among 600 barrels of aging wine.